Let me tell you something that can change everything. Your life does not respond to your wishes. Your life responds to how you show up. Not what you hope for, not what you say you want, but what you act like you believe is inevitable. The moment you start acting like nothing can stop you, something incredible happens. Your energy shifts. Your decisions sharpen, your standards rise, and life begins to move out of your way. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. Decide that stopping is no longer an option. The moment your life truly begins to shift is the moment you make a non-negotiable decision. Not a preference, not a hope, a decision so final that your mind stops looking for exits. Most people stay stuck not because they lack ability, but because they keep leaving themselves a way out. As long as quitting is available, your mind will return to it under pressure. When you decide that stopping is no longer an option, something powerful happens. Your energy consolidates, your focus sharpens, and all your internal resources move in one direction. This decision is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, firm, and unshakable. It happens in a moment of truth where you say to yourself, "No matter what happens, I am moving forward." From that moment on, excuses lose their authority. Fear still exists, but it no longer controls your actions. You stop asking whether something will be easy and start asking what the next step is. That shift alone separates those who transform their lives from those who stay in cycles. When stopping is no longer an option, your mind stops negotiating with discomfort. Instead of saying, "This is hard, maybe I should slow down," you begin to say, "This is hard, so I must be growing." Pain no longer feels like punishment, it feels like progress. You stop interpreting resistance as a warning sign and start seeing it as confirmation that you are expanding beyond who you used to be. This reframing builds a level of resilience most people never develop. This decision also rewires how you handle setbacks. Failure stops feeling final and starts feeling instructional. When you fall, you don't collapse emotionally because your identity is no longer tied to temporary outcomes. You get up faster because your commitment is bigger than the obstacle. You don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" You ask, "What is this teaching me so I can move forward stronger?" That mindset turns obstacles into stepping stones. As stopping disappears, discipline naturally increases. You no longer rely on motivation because motivation is unreliable. Instead, you rely on identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who finishes what they start, someone who does not retreat under pressure. And every time you keep going when it would be easier to stop, that identity becomes stronger. Over time, consistency replaces struggle. This decision also changes how others perceive you. People can feel certainty before they hear words. When you move with conviction, hesitation disappears from your body language, your voice, and your actions. You no longer chase validation because your commitment validates you. Opportunities begin to appear not because you demand them, but because your presence communicates seriousness and direction. Life responds differently to someone who refuses to quit. Ultimately, deciding that stopping is no longer an option is an act of self-respect. It is you declaring that your future matters more than your comfort, that your potential matters more than your fear, and that your growth matters more than temporary relief. Once that decision is made, your path may still be challenging, but it will no longer be uncertain, because the person who refuses to stop always finds a way forward. Act before you feel ready. Most people spend their lives waiting for a feeling that never comes. They tell themselves they will start when they feel confident, prepared, or certain, but readiness is not a signal, it is a result. If you wait to feel ready, you are handing control of your life to hesitation. Unstoppable people understand that action is the trigger, not the reward. They move first, even when their hands are shaking, because they know momentum is born from movement, not comfort. The truth is, clarity does not come from thinking longer. It comes from stepping forward. When you act before you feel ready, your mind is forced to catch up with your behavior. You stop imagining outcomes and start creating evidence. Each small action becomes proof that you are capable, and that proof builds belief faster than any amount of planning ever could. Action turns doubt into data, and data dissolves fear, Acting early also breaks the illusion of perfection. Waiting often disguises itself as preparation, but in reality it is fear wearing a respectable mask. When you move before you feel ready, you accept that mistakes are part of growth, not a reason to stop. You give yourself permission to learn in real time, to adjust, refine, and improve as you go. Progress replaces paralysis, and progress always wins. This habit reshapes your identity at the deepest level. Every time you act despite uncertainty, you send a message to your nervous system, I can handle this. That message compounds. Over time, your tolerance for uncertainty increases, and situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. Confidence stops being something you chase and becomes something you embody through repeated action. Acting before readiness also trains decisiveness. You stop overanalyzing and start trusting your ability to adapt. You learn that even imperfect decisions move you forward faster than perfect intentions that never leave your mind. Decisiveness creates speed, and speed creates opportunity. Life rewards those who engage, not those who wait for guarantees. There is also a hidden power in moving early, energy alignment. When your actions match your goals, internal conflict disappears. You are no longer torn between what you want and what you are doing. That alignment creates focus, and focus multiplies results. You begin to feel more alive, more driven, and more connected to your purpose simply because you are finally in motion. In the end, acting before you feel ready is a declaration of leadership over your own life. It is you choosing growth over comfort, courage over delay, and experience over fear. Readiness will come, but only after you move, and once you build the habit of acting first, nothing can stop you from becoming the person your future demands. Raise your standards, not your excuses. Every outcome in your life is connected to a standard you have consciously or unconsciously accepted. Your standards define what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you repeatedly experience. When you raise your standards, you change the rules of your life. You stop living by default and start living by design. Unstoppable people do not wait for circumstances to improve. They decide what is no longer acceptable and refuse to go below that line. Excuses feel comforting in the moment, but they quietly destroy momentum. They give temporary relief while stealing long-term progress. When you raise your standards, excuses lose their power because they no longer align with who you are becoming. You stop explaining why things didn't get done and start taking responsibility for making them happen. Responsibility is not a burden, it is the gateway to personal power. Raising your standards requires honesty. It forces you to look at the gap between your potential and your current behavior without judgment or self-attack. Instead of criticizing yourself, you challenge yourself. You ask better questions. What does this situation demand from me? And who do I need to become to handle this level of responsibility? Those questions pull you upward rather than keeping you stuck. As your standards rise, your daily behaviors begin to change automatically. You become more disciplined with your time because you value it. You become more intentional with your energy because you respect it. You stop giving your best effort only when it feels convenient and start showing up consistently, even on days when motivation is low. Consistency becomes a reflection of self-respect. Higher standards also change how you interact with challenges. Instead of lowering your expectations when things get hard, you raise your execution. You no longer say, this is too much, but rather, I must become stronger. That shift turns pressure into fuel. Problems stop feeling personal and start feeling purposeful, shaping you into someone capable of handling greater success. As you hold yourself to higher standards, your environment begins to adjust. Some people may resist the change because your growth exposes their comfort with staying the same. But others will be inspired by your discipline and clarity. Opportunities align with those who demonstrate reliability, commitment, and excellence. Life responds to standards because standards signal seriousness. Ultimately, raising your standards is an act of self-belief. It is you declaring that your life deserves structure, effort, and intentionality. When excuses disappear and standards rise, your actions become sharper, your confidence becomes grounded, and your progress becomes inevitable. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You simply live at a level that no longer allows small thinking or small effort. Control your inner dialogue relentlessly every battle you fight in. External world is first won or lost in the conversations you have with yourself. Your inner dialogue is not just commentary, it is instruction. And ev nervous s wise temwhether to habits advance or retreat, started whether to wolf stay sci a new calm or panic, whether to rise or shut down. When you fail to control that voice, it begins to control you. Unstoppable people understand that mastery of life begins with mastery of the mind. Most limitations are not created by circumstances, but by unchecked thoughts repeated over time. A single negative thought has little power, but repetition turns it into belief. When you allow doubt, fear, or self-criticism to play on a loop, your mind accepts it as truth. Controlling your inner dialogue means interrupting those patterns and choosing thoughts that strengthen rather than weaken you. This is not denial, it is direction. Relentless control starts with awareness. You begin to notice how you speak to yourself when things go wrong. Do you attack yourself, question your worth, or predict failure? Or do you challenge yourself with clarity and purpose? The moment you become aware, you gain choice, and choice is where power lives. You stop reacting automatically and start responding intentionally. Replacing destructive thoughts is not about empty positivity. It is about constructive truth. Instead of saying, I can't handle this, you say, this is demanding and I am capable of learning how to handle it. Instead of saying, I always fail, you say, I am refining my approach. These shifts may seem small, but they completely change how your body and mind respond to pressure. Your inner dialogue also shapes your emotional state. Words create images. Images create emotions, and emotions drive behavior. When your self-talk is disciplined, your emotions stabilize. You feel less overwhelmed and more grounded, even in high-pressure situations. This emotional control allows you to make better decisions, stay focused longer, and recover faster from setbacks. Over time, controlling your inner dialogue becomes an identity. You stop allowing external events or other people's opinions to dictate how you feel about yourself. You become self-directed. Your confidence no longer rises and falls with circumstances because it is anchored internally. This inner stability is what makes someone appear calm, certain, and powerful even in chaos. In the end, relentless control of your inner dialogue is an act of leadership over your own life. You choose the voice that guides you forward instead of the one that pulls you back. When your mind becomes an ally rather than an enemy, action becomes easier, discipline becomes natural, and your progress accelerates. Control the conversation within, and nothing outside can stop you. Move with urgency, not anxiety. There is a powerful difference between urgency and anxiety, yet most people confuse the two. Anxiety is rushed, scattered, and fear-driven. Urgency, on the other hand, is calm, focused, and purpose-driven. When you move with urgency, you are not running from fear. You are moving toward intention. Unstoppable people act quickly because they are clear, not because they are panicking. Their speed comes from commitment, not chaos. Moving with urgency begins with respect for time. Time is the one resource you can never recover, and those who understand this stop treating it casually. They do not endlessly delay decisions, overthink simple actions, or wait for perfect conditions. They recognize that delayed action is often disguised avoidance. Urgency brings decisiveness, and decisiveness creates momentum that compounds over time. Anxiety drains energy because it pulls your attention in multiple directions at once. Urgency does the opposite. It sharpens focus. When you know what matters most, distractions lose their grip. You stop reacting to everything and start responding only to what aligns with your goals. This clarity reduces stress because your energy is no longer fragmented. You feel in control, not overwhelmed. Urgency also strengthens discipline. When you operate with intention, you don't rely on mood or motivation. You take action because it's time to act, not because you feel inspired. This builds consistency, and consistency builds trust with yourself. Each time you follow through without hesitation, your confidence grows. Not emotional confidence, but grounded self-trust. Another defining trait of urgency is the ability to let go of over-explanation. Unstoppable people don't waste energy convincing others of their vision. They move quietly, execute consistently, and let results speak. Anxiety seeks validation, urgency seeks progress. When your actions are aligned with your purpose, you don't need permission to move forward. Operating with urgency also increases adaptability. When you act quickly, you receive feedback faster. Feedback allows refinement. Refinement leads to mastery. Instead of waiting and guessing, you engage with reality and adjust in real time. This keeps you agile and ahead, while others remain stuck in analysis and hesitation. Ultimately, moving with urgency is about honoring your potential. It is choosing to act now because you understand the cost of waiting. It is staying calm under pressure while remaining decisive in action. When urgency replaces anxiety, your mind becomes clear, your actions become sharp, and your life begins to accelerate in the direction you choose. Expect resistance, and keep moving anyway. The moment you decide to grow, resistance becomes inevitable. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is proof that you are leaving familiar territory. Every meaningful change challenges comfort, identity, and routine, and the mind naturally pushes back. Unstoppable people do not interpret resistance as danger. They interpret it as confirmation that they are moving in the right direction. Resistance often shows up as doubt, fatigue, distraction, or sudden fear of failure. It can feel internal, like a voice questioning your ability, or external, like unexpected obstacles and criticism. The mistake most people make is assuming resistance means they should stop or slow down. In reality, resistance appears because your old patterns are fighting to survive. When you understand this, resistance loses its authority over your decisions. Keeping moving anyway requires emotional maturity. It means acknowledging discomfort without obeying it. You don't deny fear, but you don't allow it to dictate your actions. You learn to move forward while uncomfortable, understanding that confidence is built through endurance, not avoidance. Each time you act in the presence of resistance, you weaken its grip on you. Resistance also tests commitment. When things are easy, anyone can stay consistent, but when pressure builds, excuses become tempting. Unstoppable people respond by doubling down on their standards and routines. They simplify their focus, return to fundamentals, and take the next available step forward. Progress may slow, but it never stops. Another hidden gift of resistance is clarity. It reveals what truly matters to you. When challenges arise, superficial goals fade, and real priorities surface. You begin to see which pursuits are worth fighting for, and which were never aligned to begin with. This clarity strengthens resolve and deepens purpose, making future resistance easier to face. As you continue moving forward, resistance begins to change shape. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Your capacity expands, your tolerance increases, and your confidence stabilizes. The very obstacles that once intimidated you become part of your training. You are no longer surprised by difficulty. You expect it, and you are prepared for it. In the end, unstoppable people are not those who avoid resistance, but those who refuse to be defined by it. They understand that every breakthrough is guarded by discomfort, and every level of growth demands persistence. When you expect resistance and keep moving anyway, you build an inner strength that no external force can take away. Embody the outcome before it arrives. Every transformation begins internally before it ever shows up in results. If you wait for evidence before you change your behavior, you will stay stuck repeating the same patterns. Unstoppable people understand that embodiment comes first. They begin living, thinking, and deciding as the person they are becoming, not the person their past has conditioned them to be. This internal shift creates external momentum. Embodying the outcome means aligning your actions with your future identity. It affects how you carry yourself, how you speak, and how you respond under pressure. You don't wait for confidence to arrive. You behave with certainty, and confidence follows. This is not pretending or acting fake. It is practicing the habits and mindset required for the life you want. Practice shapes identity, and identity shapes destiny. When you embody the outcome, your decisions change. You begin asking yourself different questions. Instead of asking what feels safe right now, you ask what aligns with the future I am building. This shift leads to better choices with time, energy, and focus. Small decisions made consistently quietly reshape your entire trajectory. Your environment also begins to reflect this embodiment. You naturally distance yourself from habits, conversations, and influences that no longer match your direction. You become more selective with your time and more intentional with your commitments. This is not isolation, it is alignment. You are creating space for growth by releasing what no longer serves who you are becoming. Embodying the outcome strengthens emotional regulation. When challenges arise, you respond from your future self rather than your past reactions. You stay calmer, more grounded, and more solution-focused. This emotional stability allows you to handle pressure with clarity instead of panic. Over time, this becomes your default state, even in difficult situations. As you continue to embody the outcome, your self-image begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to change and start seeing yourself as someone who already has. This change in self-perception is powerful because your mind works to stay consistent with how you see yourself. Behavior naturally aligns with identity, reducing internal conflict. Ultimately, embodying the outcome is how you collapse the distance between who you are and who you want to become. You stop waiting for permission from circumstances and start leading yourself forward. When your actions reflect your future, reality has no choice but to follow. You become the evidence of your own transformation long before the results arrive. Make unstoppable. Your identity being unstoppable is not something you switch on when you feel inspired. It is something you become through daily choice. Identity is the most powerful force shaping human behavior because once something becomes part of who you are, it no longer requires constant effort. Unstoppable people do not wake up asking whether they will show up. They show up because that is who they are. Their actions are not forced, they are aligned. When unstoppable becomes your identity, consistency replaces motivation. You no longer depend on emotions to move forward, because emotions are temporary and unreliable. Instead, you operate from principle and self-respect. Even on difficult days, even when progress feels slow, you continue because stopping would contradict who you believe yourself to be. Identity creates endurance. This identity is forged in moments no one else sees. It is built when you choose discipline over comfort, action over delay, and responsibility over excuse. Each small decision reinforces the image you hold of yourself. Over time, these decisions compound, and the question shifts from, "Can I do this?" to "Why would I stop?" The inner struggle fades because your behavior feels natural, making unstoppable. Your identity also changes how you respond to failure. Failure no longer defines you, it informs you. You don't collapse emotionally or question your worth, you adapt. You view setbacks as part of the process rather than proof of limitation. This mindset allows you to recover quickly and continue with clarity instead of frustration. As this identity strengthens, external validation loses its grip. You stop seeking approval because your standards come from within. Praise does not inflate you, and criticism does not break you. Your sense of self is grounded, stable, and internally directed. This emotional independence is one of the most powerful traits a person can develop. Over time, others begin to recognize this identity before you say a word. Your presence communicates reliability, certainty, and resolve. People trust you with responsibility because you have proven that you do not quit when things get uncomfortable. Opportunities naturally gravitate toward those who demonstrate consistency and inner strength, ultimately making unstoppable. Your identity is about self-leadership. It is choosing every day to honor your potential regardless of circumstance. When being unstoppable is who you are, Obstacles lose their power, fear loses its voice, and progress becomes inevitable. You don't chase transformation, you live it. Here's the truth: the world doesn't decide what you're capable of. Your past doesn't decide what you deserve. Your fear doesn't get the final word. The moment you act like nothing can stop you, your life shifts. Your confidence rises, your path clears, so don't wait, don't hesitate, don't ask for permission. Act unstoppable. And watch your life transform.